Moritz in Switzerland, the birthplace of ice sliding, and it is the final race weekend for the BMW IBSF four-man bobsleigh World Cup. The hunt for the Crystal Globe finishes here on this sunny Sunday morning. Grüezi, good morning everybody. Welcome to St. Moritz for our four-man competition. Martin Haven and alongside me, Anne van Nieuwenhuis. And the track has been a very unusual St. Moritz track this weekend. I wonder what it's going to throw at us today.
Very unusual indeed, and especially with the warmer temperatures than we're used to, it's driving very differently than what we are used to here in Switzerland. The track is set up really nice at the top, quite steep going into that first kink, and we're going to see a lot of action happening there with the four guys trying to get in and down, load very quietly in that first kink. We saw some skids there yesterday, some hits on the wall in the two-man, so the four-man is going to be at least as interesting. Then that second kink, long straightaway, it's like 20 seconds of nothing happening. You want to hold your breath there, going into wall, and then snake one, snake two. Very tricky this year to get right, a lot of pressure there. Sunny, a little bit tricky on the exit as well. Nash and Dixon. You want to be quiet and in the middle there, going up to Horseshoe, the most famous bobsleigh curve, going into Telephone and Shamrock. Try to control the height, but let it flow freely into Devil's Dyke and Nameless. And then we have the four right-hand curves, Tree, going into Bridge, then into Leap, going under the railway, into Gunter Sachs, and that's where you get the top speed, going down to Martino, and then you go uphill into Portago. A little bit of a tricky finish curve. Try not to hit the wall before going into the braking stretch, and it's a very long braking stretch here.
Yeah, very long everything here, 1,700 meters, longest track we used, the only hand-built natural track as well. In the race for the Crystal Globe, mathematically, Oscars Kibermanis, Justin Kripps, Johannes Lochner and Francesco Friedrich could all win it. For Kripps and Kibermanis, if Friedrich has got out of bed this morning, basically they've got no realistic chance. Francesco Friedrich there, he is warming up. He leads by 53 points, which doesn't sound like a huge amount when you get 225 for winning, but his closest rival there, Hansi Lochner, must realistically win this with Friedrich out of the top 6 to claim the Crystal Globe for four-man. Well, the air temperature hovering just above freezing, ice at -3. Normally at this time on a race morning, the ice will be down at -15 or 16 after an overnight low of maybe -20. So it is going to be a very different track.
Very different track. It is a little bit colder than yesterday for the guys who had an afternoon race, so it will be holding up better. We will probably see the ice speed up along the first run, but then as soon as this goes above that 0 degrees, then it can be a totally different track. Then it can be more similar to the artificial tracks, deteriorating throughout the run. So it's going to be interesting to watch that happen.
20 sleds on our start list, the 5th of whom will be Francesco Friedrich, last year's race winner here. We get our 8th and final BMW IBSF four-man bobsleigh World Cup race underway with Russia's Maxim Anginov, Martin Haven, and alongside me, Anne van Nieuwenhuis from Belgium, watching the action here in St. Moritz in Switzerland. 31st World Cup start for Anginov in four-man. His best, a bronze medal in Lake Placid last season. Best here, 4th place. He had a good race yesterday.
5:15, and just like we predicted, a little skid coming out of that first kink. It is very tricky for those four guys to get in. It's a quite short start here, so you have to get in and down quickly and very quietly, not to rock the sled on those long straightaways leading up to wall. And there is skid as well coming out of wall.
Hasn't been an official race here, so he sets the start record for the season, and he will set the track record no matter how fast or slow he is. Long skids there through Nash and Dixon, and again down the straight.
And this might be the different conditions for the guys as well. We've been training in the afternoon. They have a two-man race in the afternoon. This is the first time they're on morning ice, so it might feel differently than what they're used to.
Yeah, the weather's been changing every day, hasn't it? And the ice has been changing. That's one of the joys and frustrations of a natural track. 144 kilometers an hour. We'll probably get up to 148 by the end of the second heat. 106.29. Okay, so that is the new track record for the season. And he may not hold on to that for very long.
No. A little skiddy at the top, but very stable lines at the bottom of the track. The bottom of the track is shaped quite easily this year. Those right-hand curves and Martino and Portago are quite easy. But here we saw him coming at a wall with a little bit of pressure, hitting that right wall before heading into Snake, and they're skidding again from Nash to Dixon. And we saw the same happening here, out of Dixon up to Horseshoe. It looked like he wants to control it, but the back end just drifts a little bit.
Tail, there's a lot of weight behind the pivot. The tail really wags the dog when it gets sideways. Well, next up, Avodah Brown had a good day yesterday with a career best two-man result. What can he produce in the four-man? His best here was last year's four-man race when he finished 11th.
Oh, little struggle there getting in the sled, but the guys are in and down. Just hits the wall there with a little skid, 5:24. And cleanly around that second kink, drifting a little bit to the left wall, but bringing it back to an early entrance into wall. Good exit there, just touches the wall before going into Snake 1.
Closing in on Anjanov. He went out to 1300s behind after that slightly slower start. Now he's closing in on the Russian.
Yeah, we saw that from the Russian as well, a little drift from Nash to Dixon, and he went late and just hits there before the take on the telephone.
2 kilometers now down on Anjanov's sled.
He was closing in, but definitely lost some speed with that hit coming out of telephone.
Yeah, and the gap goes out from 3 to 1600ths of a second. 120.7 was the Russian speed, 118.6 for Evo.
High there at the end of Leap and Wintersax.
Big speed at the line for all these sleds. And he's 3 tenths behind.
Yeah, that mistake from Nash to Dixon cost him some speed, and then the little tap from Horseshoe to telephone as well.
These big sleds doing a lot of damage to the track, a lot of damage to the wall. It slows you down when you make those contacts.
I think it's a very different feeling than what they had in training. And here you see him coming out of Nash. Really late entrance into Dixon, and that's why he's high at the end, a lot higher than we see some of the other lines from the Spoorbobs. And here, late out of Horseshoe, tapping that wall before going into telephone. Yeah, that could have been better, he says.
Yep. Well, next up, Great Britain's Brad Hall. Brad with Taylor Lawrence, Luke Dawes and Greg Cackett in the crew. 27th four-man World Cup race for Brad. He finished 14th here last year. He was 10th in the 2018 race. And yesterday's two-man race in an unraced prototype sled that he'd never driven before, he finished a strong 8th. Well, this self-funded British bobsleigh team having a really strong European campaign, looking to rock into yet another top 10 finish here. Nice load.
Yeah, running it very long. And that left push bar, yep, got it in after that first kink.
You will see everybody running it right down to the first kink, and occasionally teams will hold themselves up in the sled until they're out of the kink and then drop in.
Yeah, not to rock the sled too much. Same line out of wall than we saw Avodah Brown do, and a little bit of a bump going into Snake too.
Wall has been the problem for skeleton and for bobsleigh all week.
It is very tricky, and yep, just like we've seen the previous sleds do, drift from Nash to Dixon and then late height, but he gets a better exit out of Horseshoe.
107.3, second fastest.
Big skid there from Shamrock to Devil's Dyke, and it looks like his sled is a little bit out of control, long on Nameless, but high speed there.
Again, looks like he's gone for fat runners, and it's a bit skiddy on the cold ice. That might help him as the track warms up a little. Second fastest speed, good speed at the bottom always from Brad's sleds, and across the line, 2500s back.
Only 500s in front of Avodah Brown.
Olympic bronze medalist in four-man in '98, Sean Olsen, you just saw there in the coach's box. He's helping out the teams this season.
He's shaking his head.
Yeah.
There was a lot of skids, but I think it's due to the ice conditions being so different than what they had in training. And here, late height in Dixon. That's why he flops off and hits the wall and then goes really late into Horseshoe. And I think he really controlled it there, not to shoot up too high with the late entrance, and then managed to get a good exit going into telephone.
So things to think about for Brad Hall.
A little bit of back pain there, I think.
Greg Kakit's had it for the last couple of weeks. Brad has got it now. Next up, Alexey Stulnev, 40th four-man World Cup race for Stulnev, 32-year-old. Best here, 9th place finish in 2017. Best four-man race for him this season, 4th place in Winterberg, but he's had 5 top 6 finishes.
Yeah, and he's been setting really good times in training. 5:10, really good getaway. Nicely around that first kink without hitting any wall, without skidding. Not the highest exit speed though, that's his teammate Andrianov who set the highest exit speed, and we see him bobbing his head again, just like we saw him doing in the two-man race and the week before. Little touch on the wall, but stays on the right side going into Snake 1. And a good control there. And a very nice exit out of Sunny in the middle. Same drift like we've seen a lot of the sleds do now. And hitting and skidding going into Horseshoe.
Yeah, not having full control into Horseshoe must not be good feeling for the driver.
No, I think they are all adjusting to the different ice conditions and training. Looks like he's getting it back under control now in the bottom part. Nice line coming out of leap and bridge.
Still has a lead over Andrianov. Speed's not quite as high as his teammates, but he will be the leader at the line. New track record on the way for Alexey Stulnev, 106.11.
I think we can say that run from Andrianov was a really high quality one. Of that first one on the ice. 500 slower in the start, 1800 slower at the finish compared to his teammate.
But the traditional rule here in St. because it's so cold and frosty, is the later you go, the better the ice. We'll wait and see what happens in this heat.
Yeah, and here we can see, just like any other sled, that drift going late into Dixon, hitting and skidding, going into Horseshoe, but manages the exit. Nice entrance into telephone.
Yeah, good exit out of Horseshoe, vital for speed. Next up is Francesco Friedrich, our World Cup points leader. Last year's winner here in St. Moritz and last year's four-man World Cup champion. Surprisingly beaten in the two-man race yesterday, breaking his winning streak by Johannes Lochner, and a new man at the back of the crew. That's on Lochner's crew, 5:05. Wasn't a comfortable load, though, from the crew.
No, and just a little touch on the left wall coming out of that first kink, but it set him up straight again, going into that straightaway until the second kink.
60th four-man World Cup start for Francesco Friedrich. 11 wins and 17 other medals. He's had 1 win here and 2 other podium finishes.
Nice exit out of wall and a good control in Snake, but a little drift there. He managed to get in earlier into Dixon, and that's why he can control it in the straightaway up to Horseshoe. Nice high line there and a great exit. And now he's going to accelerate away from... Oh, and then the big drift as well, coming out of Shamrock, going into Devil's Dyke. Little drift there, going to Nameless.
Yep, flopping late off the high-speed corners. The speed not quite as good as Maxim Andrianov. He's still in the green by 1/4 of a second.
And drifting there out of Gunter Sachs as well. Not the highest speed.
Only 4th fastest, but it'll be a new track record for Francesco Friedrich, 105.93.
They had an interesting setup in training. Some of his guys were ill or injured, so they asked one of the girls to sit in for them. So Erline Nolte, who was not racing for the women's team this weekend, she was pushing him on position number 2. Said she had a very interesting ride. She was bumping Francesco's head all the way down. Yeah, it's the first time, I think, for her to get into a four-man. It was very interesting to see. A lot of people cheering for her.
Yeah. Look in the back there. Torsten Markus, his head is almost literally touching the floor of the sled.
And here, coming out of bridge.
Watch the runners there as he makes those tiny corrections, just trying to get the line back that he needs. So Francesco Friedrich is our leader, 5 sleds down in our field of 20 here in St. Moritz. Final race of the BMW IBSF four-man bobsleigh World Cup in St. Moritz in Switzerland. Martin Haven and Anne van Nieuwenhuis watching. Dominic Dvorak about to start his 35th four-man World Cup race.
He had a lot of problems coming out of that first kink yesterday in the two-man, so let's hope he gets around it more cleanly now. And yeah, just a little touch and putting him back to the middle. 5:11.
Disqualified out of last year's race, but his that means his best race finish here officially is 23rd. So he will do better than that today if he finishes the 2 runs.
Little drift hitting that right wall before going into snake 1, but no skids at the top part of the track. Nice exit there out of Sunny. And a little drift, but good control in Dixon. Going late into Horseshoe. He's pointing it more to an early entrance. Good exit there. Long on telephone. And a little skid there going into Devil's Dyke as well, but not as bad as we've seen some other sleds do. Yeah, skidding there out of Devil's Dyke too.
Speed was very good. Only Antonov quicker. He's right around the same speed as Francesco Friedrich, but he's in
Saxon. That's really high at the end, hitting the wall hard, going there.
All sorts of trouble in the fast 4 right-handers. Still second place at the line. Wow, that was an uncomfortable ride for the guys in the back. You don't expect that in those fast 4 pressures. It's smooth and relatively gentle given the speed, but well, yesterday he came in Brad Hall's 2-man sled. He was banging his helmet on the cowl. He can't believe he's been caught out again, and it's so unusual to see big errors in those fast 4 right-handers. But they flow, don't they? And if you're
if you just miss a little bit of that entrance, you can see here going late into Nameless and then flopping off, and then he gets a little early into tree, and then here very late height coming out of Gunter Sachs, hitting that wall on the right side, and then again on the left side going into Martino.
Just for a moment there, it looked as though he was going to roll the sled in those corners, and they're doing over 75 miles an hour. Next up, Justin Kripps of Canada. 4 wins, including 2 this season in Lake Placid in 4-man in his World Cup career.
5:07, just got around, hits and takes a little skid there in that first straightaway.
Well, the advantage of having all the mass of a 4-man sled is those hits take a little less out of your velocity than they do in a 2-man.
Yeah, and it's also hard to get it back to a stable line, but with all the weight, it's not as skiddy as a 2-man or as a monobob even.
Yeah. At least not on thin runners, which is what you'd normally run here because the ice is normally so cold.
Very clean looking lines there. Sunny, Nash, Dixon, best sled we've seen so far in that part of the track.
And Kripps is driving himself into the lead, 3rd in the World Cup standings.
Very good speed there going into Devil's Dyke. Good stable line going to Nameless, into Tree.
He's had a real love-hate relationship with this track. He loves racing here. He hates the results he gets. His best ever in 4-man, 11th place.
Very good line until that exit of Gunter Sachs with a little drift going to Martino, but highest speed.
Yeah, big speed, 105.56. So you left Kripps out of your top 6 then, Anne, you were saying.
I forgot him.
Talk me through that.
No, I saw him this morning and I thought he's gonna be top 6 too. Well, a 3,700 lead of Francesco Friedrich. That's a big run from Justin Kripps.
Beautiful run, that is right. Well, dropping in at the crew, Ryan Summer, Cam Stones and Ben Coakwell on the back, who talked us through the women's race yesterday.
And that's, I think, his only mistake in the track.
Yeah.
Little tap there, going downhill to Martino and then touching that exit of Martino going into Portago.
Now his sled looked much more in control. Has he got narrower runners? Will that catch him out in the second heat, or will the track not change? Who knows? We're going to have to wait an hour and a half to find out. Next up, Nico Volta of Switzerland. Came into the World Cup last year in only his 2nd year of driving sleds. This is his 14th 4-man World Cup. Sylvia Weber, Cyril Bieri and Oliver Giga, the crew. Best here, 13th place in last year's race. He also came 7th in the Junior Worlds in 2018. He was 2nd, the silver medalist at under 23.
And that's a much better line around that first king than what he did in the 2-man. 5:13, 5th fastest start, 3rd fastest speed.
Skidding everywhere in the 2-man, was he? Just didn't seem to have any control at all on the sled.
So let's hope his 4-man setup is a little nicer to him. That's a great line coming out of wall. Little abrupt transition from Snake 1 to Snake 2.
And again, just to underline, no racing here. There's not been Europa Cup or anything else. So the Swiss have had maybe 1 week where they've had a few days of training more than anybody else, but huge height.
Nice line in horseshoe. Little late going into Shamrock, and that's why he hits the wall before going into Devil's Dyke.
Second highest speed, 5th
Late
fastest
there as well,
start.
and flopping off.
He's driving himself up towards the top 3.
Great line there. Middle going into Günter Sachs, just touching the wall but avoiding a skid.
3rd or 4th at the line, him or Dominic Dvorak in 3rd. Dvorak tied with Stulnev, and he's ahead of both of them by 400s. So Vogt, Dvorak, Stulnev, 3rd and tied for 4th. 3 sleds covered by 400ths of a second.
And that's a much better run than his first 2-man run yesterday. He's burying his head in the cowling a little bit. I don't know if he's completely pleased with what he did.
A couple of skids and all of that. Looks a bit tender getting out.
It was a little bit late high there coming out of Nash, and that's why he hit before going into Dixon, but controlled it well. Just brushed the wall going into horseshoe, and then a very nice high line. Just not
took
just
some ice
touching
off.
the roof, kissing the roof.
Beautiful.
But that doesn't really cost you any speed, and if you can dive it out perfectly going into telephone, it brings you so much speed.
Oh, he's not healthy, is he, Mikkel, folks? That's not good news. Well, next up is Yoon Jin Soo of Korea, our 34-year-old Olympic silver medalist from Pyeongchang. Last year in the race here in 8th position. That's his best ever result here. He's only had 1 top 10 4-man finish this season.
Good load from the guys. Oh, but little touch and he straightens it out after skidding.
So 6th fastest start, 7th fastest velocity.
And a very nice line around that second king going into wall. Just brushes the wall there as well before going into snake 1.
He's our Olympic silver medalist, but he has never had a 4-man World Cup medal.
Oh yeah, that's what the home track advantage can do to you, obviously. Really good lines there, Nash Dixon, nice stable, high line in horseshoe, and a good entrance into telephone. Good control in Shamrock. It's very nice lines now at this part of the track.
Decent speed, but he's battling with Maxim Anginov for 6th position, and we've only got 9 sleds on the ice.
Oh, it's looking very clean.
Yeah.
Little touch there.
What's the speed like? 1:43.1, only 6th fastest at the start, 6th fastest through the speed traps, 7th at the line, 1:06.32.
Not a lot wrong with that run, but
no,
not the highest speeds.
Taken over the sled that was driven by Yoon Jin Soo earlier in the season. Doesn't seem to have transformed his fortunes. Sook beat him in yesterday's 2-man race. Don't forget, he's a former 2-man World Cup champion one as well. I wonder if he is not feeling the love for it this season quite the way he has.
Yeah, it must be difficult after getting such a big program leading up to your home Olympics, then finding the budget and the motivation to go and find medals again. Not easy.
Digging yourself out of your stamp. Freistadt Bayern, the flags for Viesturs Gardens. Johannes Lochner, last year the silver medalist here. He won here 2 years ago. 9 wins in his 4-man career. He lies 2nd in the standings. Needs a win here. Needs a big start. 5:02. That is sensational.
And a really clean line around that first kink. No hits, no skids.
And this is a new lineup. Tobias Schneider at 4 because Christian Rasp is injured. First time he's pushed with the team this week.
Well, he's been pushing really well in the 2-1 with Richard Ulsner as well, so he's definitely a good guy to put on your number 4 position. And good line so far at the top of the track. Really great exit there coming out of Sunny. Late going into Dixon, but controls it.
He's only had 1 4-man win this season. That was in Winterberg when he won the European Championship. He's had silver medal in the last 3 races.
And very high speed there. Clean looking lines, all nice and straight.
Creeping away here, isn't he?
Yeah, top speed going into the 4 right-handers.
And this is what he did in the 2-man race yesterday. Rattles the wall.
There, yeah.
But still 3rd fastest speed. He's going to set a new track record and take the lead from Justin Kripps. 1:05.41. wow, what a weekend for Hansi Lochner. He's 1500s ahead of Kripps. He led Francesco Friedrich in the two-man by 3300s in the first heat. How far ahead is he of Friedrich?
5200s. That's a
5200. The only problem for Hansi is there may not be enough other sleds ahead of Francesco.
to get to globe, but I think he just wants to get the win here.
Yeah, for sure.
Nice high line there. Not as high as we see in the Swiss sled, but he got a lot of speed out of it. And that's his only mistake in the track here. Went late into Günter Sachs, that's why he gets late height and then touches the wall, downhill, going to Martino. He's so pleased with that.
He is so pleased, and what a fierce competitor. Johannes Lochner leads halfway through the first heat of our final four-man race of the season. Samuels in Switzerland, race 8 of 8 of the BMW IBSF four-man bobsleigh World Cup. And hey, guess what? It's the 11th World Cup start for Hunter Church in four-man, his 6th race in Europe. Now, he's never raced a four-man down this track. He had raced two-man in the Junior Worlds last season.
And they've been getting so great results, great starts and velocity from the guys, 506.
Again, that is absolutely world-class starting from his US crew.
But just hits and skids around that first kink.
Now, this US sled looks utterly different from anything else. It looks big and wide and square, whereas everything else is more cigar tube shaped and looks more aerodynamic, and yet it produces phenomenal speed.
Yeah, he's driving that sled really well, and I think the material is working for him. Little brush there going into Dixon. Ooh, and has to work hard to keep it straight going into Horseshoe. Good exit there.
Gets the height and great exit. Speed is excellent, 108.6. Only Kripps quicker.
Very good speed there. Nice line from Devil's Dyke to Nameless.
Now Lochner may be watching this going, come on, get in front of Friedrich, come on now. Whipping on the US sled.
Late there as well, and that's why he gets high, touches the wall, and skids going into Martino.
Big speed at the top of that forest, but lost it down at the bottom out to 5th position. But again, you know, everything here is a bonus for Hunter Church, with no real knowledge of any of these European tracks before he arrived in the World Cup campaign here in Europe. Just having such a good run of results.
Yeah, and he positioned him on 5th place, just 100 behind Michael Vogt, 300 in front of Dvorak and Stulnev. And here, that touch going into Dixon. And that's why he has some pressure left in his sled and why he has to work hard to keep it straight, and then goes late into Horseshoe. And here, a little long on leap, and that's why he gets pushed away and has a late entrance going into Günter Sachs, late height, and then touching the wall and skidding, going down to Martino.
As thinking a little about those mistakes, he's going to have to forget those and go again in the second heat. Next up is our 3rd German sled, 45th World Cup start in four-man for Nico Volta, the Olympic silver medalist in four-man from Pyeongchang. Now he's struggling with injuries in his crew. Paul Krantz has got a broken foot, won't compete for the rest of the season. And he's heading into a home World Championships with an under par and not fit team.
509, and then touching that inside wall coming out of the first kink and skidding again.
And yet, after the 5th fastest start, still the 3rd best velocity.
Great line there coming out of wall, avoiding that inside wall and going early into Snake 1.
Well, he was injured at the beginning of the season, didn't do any of the racing in North America, didn't race at all before Christmas.
Very good lines there at the top of the track, Nash and Dixon.
Driving himself into a top 6 run at the moment, 107.7, that's a kilometre an hour off Kripps and Hunter Church.
A little long there and a tiny skid going into Nameless. Nice early entrance into bridge, a little middle entrance there.
He's got a Valna four-man sled. It should be quick at the bottom of the track, 143.9. It's pretty decent speed. Little touch between Martino and Portago. Clean across the line for 3rd, 105.89. Ahead of Friedrich by 400s.
Clean lines at the bottom of the track really helped him creep back in. He ran from 6th to 3rd in that last split.
Yep. Good clean exit in those fast 4 at the bottom of the track. You can lose so much in the slow stuff, but you can give away so much everywhere here.
Not the highest line here in Horseshoe.
Steering hard off as well, wasn't he?
And as long as you get it back to parallel before you're out of the curve, it should set you up nicely going into telephone. And that's exactly what he did.
So Nico Volta chases Justin Kripps and Johannes Lochner, 12 sleds into our field. 13th of our starters, bronze medalist here last year, Oskars Kibermanis. Kibermanis' only World Cup four-man win came here in February 2017. Let's see if he can get himself in amongst the medals here again, as he did in yesterday's two-man. Five dead. They are just unbelievable, these Latvians. Anything you've got, okay, we've got that, and they go quicker.
Yeah, but he wasn't as clean as Johannes Lochner around that first kink, and that's why he's down just a little bit on speed and why he lost his start advantage. Great line there coming out of wall, early going into snake 1. Good control snake 2. But he's losing velocity compared to Johannes Lochner.
This has been a happy hunting ground for Latvian drivers in four-man over the years. Yanis Minins has won.
Drift there.
Edgars Maskalans, Oskars Melbardis has had a couple. Kibermanis' only win came here.
Good speed there, highest of all sleds we've seen so far, going into Devil's Dyke. Nice early line until Nameless.
Challenging Justin Kripps for second place. Second quickest only to Lochner there. Kripps had the absolute fastest speed at the bottom. Tiny little rear drift, but he's ringing the bell at the bottom of the track. It's going to be a new track record, is it? No, 2 tenths back, 105.61. Little stunned looks there in the coach's box.
Highest top speed at the bottom of the track.
Wow.
But still lost a little bit of time.
But 500s behind Justin Kripps, 2 tenths out of the lead, 2800s ahead of fourth place Nico Volta, and Friedrich is now down to 5th.
Very nice load from the pilot. Gets his push bar down way before they head into that first kink. And here, very different line than we've seen all of the sleds do. That's why he has a lot of left pressure.
He tried to cut off Dixon there entirely, didn't he? That's not a corner. I'm going right round the bottom. Okay, next up, Roman Heinrich. Saw him walking the track this morning with his coach, Niki Estrase, trying to figure out where to find a bit more speed here. It hasn't been the season he'd hoped for. This is his 35th World Cup start in four-man, but only his 16th as a driver.
They had a little bit of a mishap in training with Jeremy Bouterin. He's pushing on the right side. For the first time in his life, he's side pusher and not the brakeman. And he didn't get into the sled. 5:15, a little touch on the wall and straightens it out again.
Well, that's part of their problem here. Only 14th fastest starts there, the 14th sled on the ice.
A little touch there and middle going into snake, and that makes the snake transition a little bit more abrupt. A lot of pressure there coming out, just avoiding that wall and skidding from Nash to Dixon. Looks a little unstable everywhere, but does a good job of controlling it. Not the highest speed coming out of Shamrock there, 107.3. That's more than a kilometer per hour down, and really cut it off. Devil's Dyke there.
He's going to find himself down towards the tail of the field with Ivo de Bruin and Brad Hall. Our first 3 sleds are 10th and down out of 13 so far, and he may join them. 12th place, 106.36. It hasn't been the season that the French had hoped for. I'm not sure quite where they're losing, but it seems just about everywhere. 12th place ahead of Brad Hall.
He did find some speed at the bottom of the track, had nice lines at those 4 right-handers and in the final 2 curves.
Definitely wasn't skidding as much as some of the early sleds.
But here that pressure early coming out of wall, and then the pressure in his sled pushing him to the left side, right side of our screen, coming out of Sunny. That was what cost him a little bit of the speed.
Yeah, all adds up. So Roman Heinrich comes down in 12th place so far. Next up is Yoon Jin Soo of Korea, 13th World Cup as a driver. He started as a four-man brakeman, did 7 World Cups on the brakes. Best World Cup result for him was in Winterberg earlier this season in 10th place. Last year he was 16th. It's the only time he's raced a four-man here.
Push bar still in.
Yeah. Well, he's taking his time. There's lots and lots of time, isn't there, before anything else happens. You can get it in either that corner or down this straight.
5:18, 14th fastest start, 14th fastest velocity. So that's gonna cost him at the rest of the track. It's this long straightaways leading up to wall. It extends your start deficit. It's hard to catch up when you have 20 seconds of nothing happening.
Driving the sled that won the Olympic silver medal in Pyeongchang and very sideways coming down to Horseshoe. That's a heart-in-the-mouth moment for Suk.
And they're late, and that means he's high in Shamrock. Could control their Devil's Dyke, but drifts going into Nameless.
Skidding everywhere. This is looking like the first few sleds.
Ooh, and cuts it off sharply there. Early entrance going to Günter Sachs, so that's going to set him up for a nice straightaway into Martino.
He's got the front end of the sled going where he wants, but the back is doing whatever it feels like, and that's a really uncomfortable ride for Yoon Jin Soo Korea. 15th out of 15 sleds. Again, not hugely experienced in driving here. Only one previous race on this track, but again, you've got to look at the runner choices there, and the back of the sled was doing all the driving, wasn't it?
And here, high in Dixon, and then avoids the wall, but steers himself into a big skid going into Horseshoe. Not the highest line. A good aerodynamic profile of the brakeman there.
Next up is Benny Meyer of Austria. There's your race leader, Johannes Lochner for Germany, ahead of Justin Kripps and Oskars Kibermanis. Friedrich only just in the top 5. Benny Meyer's 35th World Cup start in four-man. He's only started 4 four-man races this season because of injury.
5:12 and just avoids that left wall coming out of the first kink. Very high velocity, second highest speed after that first kink. So very good job from his team.
Well, Benny's had 3 silver medals as his best results in four-man. One of them came here in the European Championships in 2016.
A little abrupt transition from Snake 1 to Snake 2.
9th fastest start, and they're already up to 6th position on the split. Can he get in front of Francesco Friedrich as well?
This is what the high velocity at the start will do. Had the second highest velocity coming out of the start groove, so that's definitely helping getting up to 6th and 7th position. Now he's up to 5th already.
108.8,
really
very good speed, second highest speed as well. This is another Valna sled, sponsored by Francesco Friedrich. Is he going to be in front of Francesco Friedrich? Is Francesco, all right, give me the money back. He is in 4th place, he is ahead of Friedrich. Friedrich is in 6th. He cannot finish the second heat lower than that. If Lochner wins, wow. This is going to be a fantastic bobsleigh race to finish off the season. What a place to do it, and it's shaping up beautifully.
Very good run from Benny Meyer. Really let his sled fly. And here the slow-mo of Horseshoe. Not as high as we've seen the Swiss sleds, but a good control. Doesn't need to do a lot of driving to take it off. And here at a leap, he just got off, flopped off, and then brought it back to an early entrance into Günter Sachs. If you go late there, you get the late height. We've seen a lot of sleds do that, but he did it perfectly, controlled it. Nice straightaway going into Martino.
Right, exciting times. 17th of 20 sleds is Austria's Markus Reichel, 12th in the race here last year. 2 8th places in Altenburg and Eagles. The most different tracks you can find are his World Cup bests. So what can he produce? Top 12 last season.
5:13 and just avoids the wall coming out of that first kink.
Again, like teammate Benny Meyer, hasn't done many World Cup starts. This is only his 5th four-man of the season.
10th fastest sled at the start, 10th velocity, but really hits hard there coming out of wall.
A lot of ice out of the wall.
And just touches the inside there, coming out of Sunny. Late going into Dixon. and that's why he touches coming out of Dixon.
Think what Sook and Won's sleds look like and how much more control he's got at the back of the sled. Again, I wonder if he's got thinner runners on maybe than the Koreans went with.
And here a nice exit from Devil's Dyke, little flop off Nameless.
Couple of kilometers an hour shy in terms of top speed, so
late there, and he's going to be late high.
Real trouble, huge hit on the wall, and that takes away all the speed from the sled. Was 11th, and he's going to be around 15th at the line. All 13th place, 106.35.
100 in front of the French sled, 300s behind Yoon Won.
Yeah, that's a very tight battle. So Lochner, Kripps, Kibermanis still the top three.
Next is Yoon Xiao.
And here coming at a wall, really hitting hard, going into Snake 1.
Well, he saw Viesturs, our photographer there, looking to get a good shot, so he thought, I'll give him something.
And he's really long there on leap, and that goes super late into Günter Sachs, and that's why he's high there at the end and hits the wall really hard.
I bet that got his
Heading down.
attention in a hurry, didn't it? Oh, dear. That was close.
It is a very scary feeling when you're up so high and you can see the straightaway in your right corner.
And it's not exactly slow there either. 3 to go. This is the 18th sled on ice. Xiao Yi China of China, 25-year-old in his 6th ever World Cup start. This is only his 5th four-man race of the season. He raced here once in the Junior Worlds in 2018.
Chinese had a really good race in the two-man as well.
Yep.
5:18, and a good control around that first kink.
Well, one of the signatures of both drivers in the two-man yesterday was not only how much control they had of the sled, very few skids, but also they both got decent speed at the bottom of the track.
Yeah, definitely. To the surprise of their mechanics.
Yeah.
They were in the coaching's box very surprised by the results they got in the first heat. Good control there, nice middle line. Oh, but drifts there coming into Horseshoe. Nice height and a good exit.
Xiao raced here in the two-man yesterday, but his teammate, Li Chunjian,
Big
comes
drift
up
going
last.
into Nameless there. And hitting the right wall from tree to bridge. That's not how you want to do it.
But again, he's driving himself into the top 10. Speed at the bottom, 15th, all right, maybe not. He'll sag away a little bit. He was 11th in the middle of the forest, and at the line, 13th position, 100th behind Olympic silver medalist Yoon Jin Won. There's two career paths almost intersecting and crossing now, do you think? Xiao on the way up, I mean, he's got 0 experience. 6th ever four-man World Cup race, only raced here once before.
Yeah, he's definitely on his way up. And
Well,
here
sends it there, doesn't he? Late
Yeah.
and high.
but uses that speed coming out of Horseshoe. And then here from Devil's Dyke to Nameless, just on a little bit long, and then drifts.
Good start from Xiao Yi China as he ends up in 13th place. 2 sleds to go, both World Cup debutants. First up, Mikkel Cronin, first four-man as a driver. He had 6 four-man races as brakeman for Beat Hefty, for Clemens Brucker, and for Rico Peter. Rico is here this weekend. Made his two-man debut yesterday in 11th place finish.
5:19 and hits and skids out of that first kink.
Now the man at 2, 25-year-old Kai Tedeschi, as far as I can ascertain, this is his first ever bobsleigh race.
It's impressive.
It wouldn't be the first time it's happened here with
Cup.
sleds in Samaritz, but
Yep.
Beat Hefty brought in a mixed sled of 3 athletes who had never started a World Cup race, once in four-man, 2 of whom were female.
Drift from Nash to Dixon. And a middle high line there in Horseshoe. Good exit out of Telephone. It is down on speed compared to the top sleds.
And that's all that skidding. Cronin only started driving last year in Europa Cup.
Good looking lines there in the 4 right-handers.
Chasing Avodah Brown and Brad Hall.
Very good speed at the bottom of the track,
though.
though.
Goodness me, you're kidding. Oh, that might push him up 3 or 4 places. It does to 16th at the line.
Well, from 18th fastest start to 16th at the bottom, he really drove himself into that place at the bottom of the track.
Yep.
Too bad he made a little bit of mistakes at the top. Those skids from Nash to Dixon really cost him some
If he
time.
wasn't a little tight and nervous in a four-man race for the first time in World Cup, I'd be surprised. Crew loaded late, but he just took the tap and didn't panic.
Yeah, but then breaks into that skid. And then here we see Nash to Dixon drifts away from the entrance. And then it's hard to control. A little late height there, touching and drifting late to Horseshoe.
Well, welcome to the World Cup four-man races for Mikkel Cronin, and now for Lee Chun-jan. Lee did not drive two-man yesterday, and his teammate Jin Jan has done all the four-man World Cup races so far this season, but crashed last week and is not here racing. So it's a four-man debut for Lee Chun-jan. Again, only previous experience of this track, Junior Worlds in 2018. He's had 4 two-man starts this season. This is his first ever in four-man.
Gets around that first kink, then gets the push bar in. 5:13, 10th fastest start.
16th momentum though, so they had a bit of a bump and a skid off kink 1.
Let's see how he gets out of wall. Just a little touch, not a bad line, and a little jump going into snake 2 though. That's gonna rob him of a little speed.
Nice exit and smooth little skid into Nash and Dixon, but he's got it under control coming to Horseshoe. Look at the focus.
Very good control there. Nice height, good exit. Nice early entrance going into Shamrock.
Decent speed, 108.4, that's top 6.
Very good line there. Nice and middle going from Devil's Dyke to Nameless. Good lines at the bar there. Just a little abrupt coming out of bridge, but good control.
He is in the top 6, not anymore. He's skidding his way out, but it should still be a top 10 run at the line. Where is he going to be?
Wow!
5th place, ahead of Nico Volta and Francesco Friedrich in his first ever World Cup start. Well, God help us when he's not nervous. Well, again, look, we saw the Chinese sleds with good speeds in two-man yesterday with good control, and I don't know what runner choices their Swiss techs have made, but they're working.
They're working really well. Even with that drift coming out of Guntersex into Martino at the bottom of the track, he still found some speed. He still found some time to put him in 5th position. There, the late height.
And if he hadn't had this, how far is he off 4th? He might even have got to Benny Meyer. That's unbelievable. What a first run. They're waving 5 fingers at him. I don't know if he knows even remotely that they mean he's in 5th. Well, at the end of a dramatic first heat, our final four-man race of the season, it's yesterday's two-man winner, Johannes Lochner, who again seems to be driving a slightly different track to everybody else. He's 1,500s ahead of Justin Kripps, 2/10 ahead of Oskars Kibermanis, and his rival for the Crystal Globe, Francesco Friedrich, is out of the top 6.
Who would have expected that?
I know. Well, apparently not you. So, Johannes Lochner, the leader, Justin Kripps, Oskars Kibermanis, and then Benny Meyer, Lee Chun-jan of China in 5th, and Nico Volta in 6th. And the critical thing here is Francesco Friedrich is in 7th. He's only a fraction out of 6th and 5th, but he needs, if Lochner wins, which we assume is possible, then Friedrich needs to be no lower than 6th. Game on. How time to get excited. Okay, join us for the final heat of the four-man season. The race for the Crystal Globe concludes starting at 11:30 local, 10:30 GMT. We'll be back. See you then.
Bye, little friend.